Hiya VC, back again. I thought I'd do something different for this one. Seems to be the season of trying things differently. What with James, Vinyl Professor, doing children's records and a fabulous video on the Beatles book that he picked up for a couple of quid. So here we go. I thought I'd just share with you probably my favourite 10 music books. Something different. Because I finally picked up, I've got all my music books in one place, all the ones I'm keeping anyway, from home. I might even do a part 2 to this sometime later. I'm not doing a massive video on this one. But I thought I'd just go through, these are probably the 10 books, either they've made a big impact on me, or they're probably the books I've spent the most time looking at, or they represent real loves. But these are my 10 favourite music books I've read and own. So we're going to start off with the first music book about music that I ever got. And I think I picked this up from a jumble sale in sort of 1983, 84, for probably about 20 pence or something stupid. I can't even remember, 5p. It is, now, the official Adamant story. Now, on the face of it, this would be a sort of a hack job, typical fan, catering to the fans piece of tripe. But this isn't. This really isn't. Yeah, it tells the story of Adamant from his early years, through his first band, Bazooka Joe, through supporting the Pistols at the St Martin's College, was it? Through going through the first incarnation of the Ants, having his band stolen by Malcolm McLaren, so that he could go off and try and do and find Annabella Lewin and do Bow Wow Wow, and then his route back when he found Marco Perrone and or he met Marco Perrone and formed the successful version of the Ants. But not only that, it goes through. It's got bits of just almost philosophy in here. It rips bits out of the Futurist Manifesto, which led me to a lifelong interest in modern art, because I had to go and see what all this futurism was like. So that meant several trips to the Tate Gallery. Led me finding out about McLaren, find out what a wanker he was. Just led me to find out about the Pistols. This book probably influenced my life just as much as Smith's album, or all kinds of, it just influenced in so many ways. Kabuki, he used Kabuki, so that sort of kick-started an interest in things Japanese. I mean, it's just like incredible what this book brought to me. I mean, you know, you got pictures of early stage designs. There he is with his Kabuki stage makeup. There they are. There's Jordan, who worked in the sex shop in Chelsea, Kings Road. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. If you ever find a copy of this, just read it, because it's a really good book. Right, leave that one for now. I'm going to show this one. Right, this one is the nation's favourite. Now, this is the story of Radio 1 during, I think, now when was it? It was when was it written? I'm just having a look when it was written, because that tells you sort of the period. It's written about the period in Radio 1 in 1993, when they got a new controller, Matthew Bannister, and he basically tore the station apart to rebuild it. He banned old records, he did all kinds of stuff. But this is the story of Radio 1 from 1967 to that point just after 1993, when everything changed. And it is just an eye-opener just an absolute incredible story. Just how, the changing of the guard in '93 when Simon Bates and Gary Davis left. Basically, one by one, they were forced out, and the new guard took over. Read this. This is a brilliant read. Absolutely brilliant. Which one next? We'll go through some reference books. These three next. Right. Now, this is my last copy I got of this particular book. I think I owned at least 3 other copies of this book, all through sort of the 80s and the early 90s. But it is the Guinness Book of British Hit Singles. Now, this one, I think, was the last edition, or it was nearly the last edition. This one was, when was it? 2002. 2002? 16 to 2003? Somewhere around there. So this is a book, for those people who don't know, this is a book that listed the chart positions of every single that made the British charts from 1952? Yeah, 1952 to 2002. So this is the first 50 years of the British charts. And I just used to listen to records and just pore over this. Like, I used to hear songs on the radio and I'd immediately pull this out and rush to find what chart position they got to. Did they make the charts? This book probably led me to believe that if a song didn't make the charts, then it was rubbish, which a few years later, I found out to be quite the opposite, to be honest. Probably the best records never made the chart, and it was the rubbish that got to the top. But, well, yeah, in 2002, that's true. So I just found this book fascinating. Let's just open it and let's see what we've got. Right, we've got Shirley Ellis's Clapping Song, made number 6 in 1965 and spent a total of 13 weeks on the chart. I'm sorry, I find that fascinating. Probably the sado in me, but I don't care. And you can tell this is well thumbed. This was the last version. There's also a British Hit Albums book, and I found that the other day. But it's just fantastic. So many hours whiled away with that one. This one I picked up in Japan. This is the Trouser Press Guide to 90s Rock. And I picked this up in Japan sort of around the middle of the 90s. For 100 yen this was, which was approximately, at the time, 35 pence, which I thought was a ridiculous price. And it is just so good because it covers everything to do with 90s rock, sort of from the late 80s through to about 94, 95, whenever this was published. And I found out about so many bands. ESG, I found out about Ethel Meatplow. It's got about just so many bands that I've never heard. I've now heard of a lot of them, but it's just really good when you go back. I was looking at all sorts of new stuff that was new to me, like Giant Sand, I don't know, Elvis Hitler. I'm just pulling random names out that I know now. I don't know them. New Mercury Rev, Mind Funk, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I love these kind of books where you just sort of open them up and browse and read about somebody, and then it makes you want to go and listen. Probably these kind of books are even more important now because since the age of Spotify and all the rest of it, well, you can actually go and listen to these now. Open it up at a random page, get some completely unknown band, go and listen to it somewhere online. But I spent hours looking at that. Coupled with that, I also bought this at about the same time, and it was probably about a couple of quid or something, which was the Essential Listening Companion to Alternative Rock. Covers a lot of bands. Yeah, a lot of bands I've heard of, but this was remember, this was the age of pre-internet, pre-Wikipedia, pre-anything. So the only way you could get information on these bands was through books like this, or reading every magazine under the sun, which just wasn't going to happen. But it's got, I think this went up to sort of about 80, 90, when was it published? Oh dear, I can't see when it was published. 2000. So it was bang up to date, and it was really handy just to try and keep track of stuff, maybe find out little snippets of information on bands that I liked, where they came from, maybe sort of, and it's got a discography, or selected discographies for all of the artists in the book, and there's over, I don't know, 3,000 artists in here? 7,000 records anyway. And it's got producer discographies, it's got label discogs, all essential information that you just wouldn't have pre-internet. Great, I love that book. Right, okay, on to another reference book, but I think this is just a fantastic book. I absolutely love reading this, and I still look at it. So it's The Peel Sessions. Now I have got the book about Peel himself, but to me this is probably just more important. It's the story of the Peel Sessions, so it tells you all kinds of stories about Peel, about John Waters, who was his producer, about some of the bands who recorded it, about the history of the Peel Sessions, how they came about stories of classic sessions, and it's got a list of every single Peel session that was ever recorded. So this is just a fantastic book, and I think I got this for Christmas one year, and I was just so chuffed with that, and I've read it at least 2 or 3 times. So that's a great book. Right, we'll do that one next, and then that one, then that one, and that one. Right, this is probably my next 2 are my favourite music books ever, just for what they covered. Just brilliantly written, just fascinating stories. The first one is England's Dreaming. Now, if you haven't read this one, you should really get yourself a copy. It's by John Savage, who wrote for... Did he write for NME? Oh, he wrote for loads of magazines anyway. But it's basically a history of punk rock. Obviously with a heavy focus on the Pistols, but it's all kinds of... it covers England and America, Scotland. It goes through a lot of... so much detail in this. Goes through the early Pistols scene, goes through the pre-Pistols. It also has a really cool section at the back where he rates his favourite punk records, and it's just a fabulous read. And I've read that a couple of times, and it is just a glorious record, a glorious album. So used to talking about records in these videos, I can't get the words out. There we go. So that's England's Dreaming by John Savage. Sort of a later version of that is My Magpie Eyes Are Hungry for the Prize, which is the story of Creation Records. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. Oasis, Money, Coke. That was basically it, to be honest. But there's so many stories along the way, from the first single, which was Everett True's Altonym, which was The Legend, through the Mary Chain releasing Upside Down, all the bands that they had in the late 80s, like House of Love, and all the stories of them, and Ride, and the Blow Up, and just every single band that was on here. The Boo Rag, it's on Creation at one point. Oh, I probably got that one wrong. But there's so many bands that went through their hands, and then of course Oasis happened and everything changed. But that second, I think I prefer the story of the first part of creation, the pre-Oasis story, because it was just, to me, just more interesting. But yeah, there's loads of stuff that went on afterwards, so it was great. Um, Terrific book that is. Kind of following on from England's Dreaming. If you have England's Dreaming and you have this book, which is Rip It Up and Start Again by Simon Reynolds, who's one of my favourite music um, writers ever. I just love Reynolds. Used to read him in the Melody Maker in the 80s. But if you have England's Dreaming and this, basically you've got the story of British music and American music, British and American alternative music from about 75, 76 through to 84. So this is the story picks up from England's Dreaming, and it follows all of those, post-punk, Public Image, goes through New Romantics, it goes through New Pop, it goes through just every genre you could think of. Goth, I think, has got a bit in here. What else is in here? Kind of industrial, all kinds of stuff. Gang of Four's in here. That synth stuff. It's just absolutely fantastic. This is such a good read. Such a good read. Sorry about the noise. I don't know if you can hear it, but I've left the YouTube running in the other room. I was watching some of James's videos and I've left it running. Twit. Right, the last one probably acted as a direct influence on basically my habits of crate digging, because this made me just look for those not undiscovered but relatively unknown gems. It was a magazine. It was a book I got with the Melody Maker back in sort of, I don't know. Oh, it says here 95. Given away free with the Melody Maker in 95, and it's called Unknown Pleasures. And this was, they asked different writers to talk about records they felt had been unjustly overlooked, or were forgotten, or just never received the exposure in the first place. So it's just the enthusiasm for the albums that really comes through this book. I've read this over and over again. I mean, the sort of albums they have at the time. I mean, remember this was 95, so a lot of these albums now they've kind of revived, but at the time they were sort of just forgotten or overlooked. Not always the most obscure artists, but they were just reappraisals of records that were just held in poor standing. So you had Time Fades Away by Neil Young, Clear Spot by Captain Beefheart, Chic with Risque. Chic at the time, I think their disco at the time in the mid-90s, I think was just in the standing was in the doldrum. And Chic, I mean, this book turned me on to Chic and to all the Nile Rodgers stuff. And I just thank this book for it. The Specials, More Specials, which is a brilliant album. Gene Clark, No Other. This is where I first heard about Gene Clark's No Other. Todd Rundgren and Wizard of True Star, which is another brilliant record. Lexicon of Love. Well, I don't know why that was. Anyway, it's David Stubbs. I don't know why he did that one. ABBA, The Visitors. Love that album now. The Go-Betweens, Liberty Bell and the Black Diamond Express. What else is in here? Magazine. Completely forgotten. Residence by Ever True. A lot of my favourite writers are in here. Bow Wow Wow. The Raincoats. This made me find out about the Raincoats. Well, that and Cobain as well. Orange Juice. Fleetwood Mac, Tusk, which made me go and get a copy of Tusk, which I'm eternally grateful. I love that album. Micro Disney, 39 Minutes. I think I've only just got. Is that? Oh no, I haven't got that record. But I did listen to it. Well, maybe I got it on CD. Dexy's Don't Stand Me Down, which is now considered to be one of the records of all time. Led Zeppelin Presents, which is a forgotten about Led Zeppelin record. Nobody mentions Presents. Curtis Mayfield, There's No Place Like America Today. I mean, it's just maybe not the most obscure choices, but it's the writing and the enthusiasm for these records that shines through. So this had a big impact on me as well. Right, so there we go. 10 records that kind of inform my life, really. If you do get a chance to pick any of them up, especially cheap, and do, I would really recommend the Simon Reynolds book. And if you can see a copy of Unknown Pleasures knocking about in a charity shop, then I really would pick it up. And England's Dreaming was what a book. Right, anyway, that's 21 minutes of me whittering on about books without a single record in sight. So I better cap it off there. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all soon with various more recorded music videos. Alright then, cheers VC, bye.